Welcome to the Virtual Podcast. It's great to have you with us. This is the podcast from the platform connecting the community with founders, industry experts, and startup greats. With over $190 million raised across 240 successful campaigns, we certainly know a thing or two about capital raising. But remember, the information and discussion in this podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered as advice or a recommendation to invest. So please do your own research and always consider to the general CSF risk warning and offer document before investing. One of the best things about Virtual is that we get the privilege of working with a continuous stream of amazing founders, investors, and just general people who are awesome in the startup ecosystem. And today is really no exception, where we welcome Jo Stanley, a very well known to many of you voice of the radio, a celebrity and kind of personality in the media space, and a lady who is now taking a stand to build her legacy project, which is all about building a network to support women, for women, by women. It's an awesome story and one you'll probably be hearing more about as Jo goes through her raise for broad radio on the Virtual platform. Jo, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you, and welcome to the Virtual Podcast.
It is a joy to be here with you, Michael.
It's a small and slightly sweaty room. So.
You're instantly intimate, aren't you?
Well, it's a bit like that. We've turned the lights up to avoid the over-intimate experience, because that was going to be like, a one-on-one date or something like that. But anyway,
the music on arrival I thought was a lovely touch.
I thought the guy in the suit was a bit OTT, but... Jo, you're looking at doing a race actually coming up, or actually I think by the time we release this episode, you'll be mid-race on the Virtual platform.
Oh my gosh, how exciting is that?
Oh, wow.
I'm so excited.
Excited, cool.
Yeah.
Why are you choosing to do it at the moment? What's the why now?
Well, we began 3 years ago and I've been bootstrapping in that time. Spent 2 years really developing our proof of concept. Had the MVP running for 2 years. So that was a live streamed radio show that we were doing on Facebook and YouTube, kind of just using what free platforms we had available to us. And that served its purpose. And then in the last year, we've been building an app, which is it's going to be delivering live radio.
Cool.
And then really it's just got to a point where to scale, to be able to release that app to market, to really give it its best chance. Because you want to market that thing and advertise that thing and, get great content on there. We need investment, and I'm really excited to find some partners. I've been working on my own. My husband and I, co-founders, working on my own for 3 years. And I think that that's part of the excitement about investment, is that you find your partners, the people that are believing in you and your idea and really want to see it grow and are there with their networks and their skill set and whatever they can do to help you. That's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, super cool. So just tell us, we're talking about obviously broad radio. So tell us what's the why. What is it? How, for those who are unfamiliar with it, what's it all about?
So it's radio network for women by women.
Okay.
Pretty simple. The why is, I spent 20 years in radio, did breakfast radio for 15 years. And when I finished, I sort of looked around I'm like, woohoo, I'm an audience member now because I love radio. It's my first love as far as media goes. And looked around and realized I was working on Triple M at the time, actually. And I really love Triple M as a model because it's unapologetically for men. And that audience needs Triple M, right? I love it.
Okay.
I love that audience. They're super fun. They're funny. Radio audiences are the best in the world. So I looked around and I was like, oh, now I want to be an audience member. And there was just nothing for women. Like there was no Triple M for chicks, right? There was no AW, there was no SEN, there was no Triple M that women felt was specifically for them.
Right.
And that felt crazy to me. I was like, but hang on, we control 80% of the household spending, particularly women over 35. We have like a disposable budget more and more. And there's nothing that's speaking directly to us. And I saw this app in the market that was enormous. And then as I did a little more research, it became for me more purpose-led. So it began kind of as a business case and a really, really strong commercial, case.
Right.
But then I looked around and the figures are really dire when it comes to gender equality in media generally and in radio specifically. 27% of the voices you hear in radio are female. And, you know, that is improving. It probably has improved since that figure, which was in 2021. But there's still such an absence of female voices, not just on air, but in producing and behind the scenes as far as management is concerned. And that really has an impact on society. If you think about how radio reflects the day, that moment, the stories that are told about society, and also if you think about how society is shaped by the media, if there are not equal voices, then how are we going to reach gender equality in society? So it became much more purpose-led after I did that research. So I'm really excited to be able to create, it's internet radio.
Okay.
Yeah, internet radio that's delivered via an app. It's live talk back. It's music. Yes, it's podcasts as well. We sort of build out this whole platform that's elevating women's voices.
Okay, I love that. So tell me, for those who aren't familiar, and mainly for my education, why are you so passionate about radio as a platform or as a medium? What is it about that which you think is so special?
I mean, I love podcasts, and obviously podcasts are a very vocal minority at the moment. They're definitely on the rise exponentially. But radio is still 79, depending on the measurement and, you know, the survey that you listen to, between 79% and 95% of Australians listen to radio every week. It's holding on, not just holding on, but it's thriving. It's just the delivery of radio is shifting with technology. So we have DAB Plus now and moving into streaming as well. So radio is very much still current and very much loved. It's so immediate. It's so interactive. You know, when I was doing breakfast radio, we would have an idea, and I love TV. That's, you know, a different medium altogether. Film's amazing. I was a stand-up comic. Like, I kind of love all sorts of creativity, writing, whatever. But in radio, you can have an idea at 5:30 a.m. and it'll be on air at 6:10. Immediate. And you can get a reaction from your audience. You know if it sings straight away because your audience will tell you.
Yeah.
And I did a breakfast show for 10 years on Fox FM, the Matt and Jo show. And I did another show on Gold 104.3, Jo and Limo. And both of those audiences, you know, they trust you with their stories, with their lives. You in turn trust them with yours. There's a real intimacy. Not as much as this right now, Michael, obviously. In this very close quarters. But it's, you know, it's
for
just...
the listeners, it's at a very weirdly small table in a weirdly small padded room. And I think the door's open, so you can leave at any time, just so you know.
I feel entirely comfortable. I'm used to it in radio. It is literally a fishbowl. It's a bubble. But it's just got that immediacy and that ability to impact a person's life. And I hear still every week someone will tell me the difference I made in their lives. And it's not just me, it's every person that's on radio has that impact. It's the medium. And it's been around since the 20s, right? Like, how amazing is that?
So have you seen it change? Because I would imagine you've seen it from both sides, a consumer, listener, and then you've also been on the production side. So what is it? Tell us a bit more about the production side of it. What goes on? How do they actually make these shows so compelling? The people that 95 to 97% of the population turn up or listen and engage or do something or consume. What is it about the content? What do they know about that content? And again, which you're bringing to broad radio more broadly.
Well, at the heart, it's knowing your audience,
right,
and putting yourself in their shoes. Like, it's empathy in action every day.
Okay.
Every minute, really. And I was lucky because I was always speaking to myself. Like, my audience were always pretty much my age and my gender.
Okay.
But as I got older, now I finished in breakfast radio when I was, early 40s. And yeah, there was less and less content for me. And I did do quite a lot of research before I started broad radio. And that is the trend, that women, as they get into their 40s, they just lose interest in radio because it's not for them anymore.
Right.
But if you are making radio, the number one thing that is your job is to understand what your audience is living. What's their life? What are they waking up to today? What news excites them? Are they going to see Taylor Swift? Did they miss out on Taylor Swift tickets? Are they, struggling with, in my age bracket, managing teenage kids, a divorce and aging parents? Are they thinking about, oh my gosh, I've only worked part-time for the last 15 years. I don't have enough super, or, all that kind of stuff. Also, I've got girlfriends that I love and I barely see, or like whatever the most specific details you can get in your mind about that audience, and you think of them as individuals, then that's your job. You just create content for them every day. And it's the greatest job ever. It's so much fun. It's hard, it's grueling, it's relentless, but it's so much fun.
And in researching this yourself before you came here, I was listening to some of your episodes and you just kind of have a ball, actually. I was like, wow, I can't wait to interview Jo, because there was a certain lightness to it, which is that the part of it? Is that a big part of it?
Well, I think light and shade is key,
right?
Personally.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their own way of doing radio and audio content. For me, I think it's at its best when you are as authentic as you can be, and that usually comes about by sharing some shade as well as light. It's being quite open about how you feel about things and being willing to have the courage of conviction about that. And also, trying not to be boring.
Yeah.
Conversation can be really boring. You've got to make sure that you both,
Thanks for the feedback, Jo. Cheers.
You only keep you prepare enough so that you're only bringing the gold. Yeah. And for me, it was always about inviting the listeners to join the conversation.
Okay, cool.
Which is why Talkback is so awesome.
Got you. Because of it, the continuous engagement side of things.
Yeah, they bring funny stories. They're fun, people. I don't know. Like, I think we've learned from podcasts and the democratization of content that everyday people can be brilliant to listen to. Funny and clever and moving and surprising. It was my favorite part of being on air.
Well, do you mind me asking, why did you leave it?
Oh, I got sacked.
Okay, that's...
Which,
I'm sorry.
You know what? Everyone gets sacked. Everyone gets sacked in radio at some point.
Can you go into why?
No, because they never told me.
Oh, what?
No.
Okay, so is it no closure by the sounds of things?
Oh, look, it's not. It's actually, it was the best thing to happen to me, right? Honestly, I wouldn't be doing broad radio without it.
Okay.
I wouldn't be the person I am today without it. And I was not living as consciously as I am now. Because it's a very, what can I say? It's a really exhausting, very overwhelming kind of lifestyle doing breakfast radio. So I suppose I sort of was just running on a treadmill and wasn't really aware that's what I was doing. I thought I was pretty evolved and conscious, but I am way more now.
What do you mean by conscious?
Oh, I guess understand living in the present. I meditate every day. I know my purpose. I'm connected with my true self. The universe is engaged. I engage with the universe and it engages with me every day in a way that I didn't have then. So it was the best thing to ever happen to me. And honestly, Michael, I've spoken a lot about it. So you should have done your research, because honestly, there are so many podcasts in which I talk about being sacked that it's very boring now. And everybody would assume, I suppose, that I'm still holding on to some kind of bitterness or rage about it. The fact is, though, I don't know why I was sacked, because the person who sacked me never, ever returned my calls. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll link to some sacking podcasts. But don't you think that so many startups have come from people being sacked? Oh, for sure. And I think it's this misconception that sacking is bad as well. It's also from failure as well. Where I think the episode I was listening to on your side was just talking about general, as you were talking about life with teenagers and what that's like, and making lightheartedness around being a mother and things like that. So from a men's perspective, just real quickly coming back to broad radio, what do you see the purpose of men in terms of this radio show? Where does that fit? So it's when it's fully rolled out and fully operational, it's a 24/7 station, not just a show. and with a platform for podcasts as well and various other content that we're planning to roll out over the first 12 to 24 months. And essentially, yes, there will be men on air. There'll be many men working at the station. It's just an inversion,
got you,
effectively, of what we currently have.
Okay. So
and the content is always through a female lens. So if you, again, you take Triple M as an example,
yep.
I have worked many times on Triple M. I had a show on Triple M, which I loved. And in recent times, I've done, little guest spots and fill-ins and all that sort of stuff. So they often have women on that station, as they should. They need to have female representation there. But the audience, unapologetically male. And the content, if I was to go on Triple M, going back to your point about what is my job in production of that, it's putting myself in a man's shoes and knowing what he wants to talk about. And I'm a woman talking about that, right? That's great. That's really important. Well, on broad radio, everything is through the female lens.
Very cool. Tell me, you mentioned working with your husband.
Yes. I'm laughing already.
You mentioned shade, and I was like, I work with my wife in my business, and that has some intimate challenges, very, very challenging, switching from husband-wife to mother-father to sometimes, dating my wife as well, when we get time to do that outside
You're big romantic, isn't it?
I don't want to oversell it here.
You use the word dating. It's not a word I use with my husband.
Tell me, how do you balance it all?
Are you asking me about my work-life balance, or how do I manage to work with my husband?
I'm asking about the latter. How you navigate wife, husband. Well, we have two home offices at opposite ends of the house. Okay, so that's still you don't, is that what you're saying?
He me to tears. He's a brilliant man who is very funny and very kind, but I find his work process very different to me. So we just work at opposite ends of the house. We are sometimes, in a studio together and shooting together, and that can be fraught.
Got you.
So the key to that is identifying what each other's roles are before the day, and then to say to each other before the day, that is your role. You will do that and only that, and I will only do my role. And if one of us is not adhering to those boundaries, then we are entitled to say, hey, back off.
So for those who are not watching the video, she's pointing her very sharp pink fingernails in my direction. And so I'm really kind of getting
Did that feel visceral for you?
The whole experience of it, yeah. I might just retreat to my office down the other end of the house.
How do you manage with your wife?
With difficulty, it would be the answer. Like it's a real, and I think it's, why I'm curious most is how it's evolved for you, because for us, it's been, like a real journey. One where we've got a lot closer, but one where we've been, like it's like, I think, rubbing two pieces of sandpaper together where it's tough, there's friction, but if you keep doing it, it gets smoother and actually gets better, and it's better over time. It's how
what a lovely metaphor.
Well, maybe.
I like that.
But I feel like we've developed new depths to our relationship, which our relationship's much better for. But I'm wondering whether that's the same for you. Maybe we just suck at it. And
No, I think it's really hard. But firstly, I would suggest no one should go into working with their partner if it doesn't come from just a foundation of respect for each other.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, arguably that's what you need in any relationship, whether you're working together or not, right?
Helpful.
You would hope. And so, I love working with him because he's brilliant, and I love seeing his ideas emerge from this very chaotic way that he thinks, or seems to me. And I think he probably finds me extremely frustrating in that I'm very methodical and quite, I need to have my systems.
Okay.
And he sort of is a bit of he works in production, as a freelancer. So they are, what would I say? They just make the impossible happen, which means that often they're a bit of a cowboy sort of process, I guess.
Okay.
Look, I'm saying this without really knowing how he does his job. Anyway, I have great respect for him. I think he's amazing. I love him very much.
That's a great caveat.
Yeah.
Asterisks. Still love you, please. So, in terms of that, then, okay. So, how do you in the business in terms of broad radio? Where are you up to in terms of what was the response from the live streaming side of things? How did as you were building this out?
Yeah.
What's it become for those who are unfamiliar?
So, we created over 100 hours of content there. We've released those as podcasts as well. So tens of thousands of downloads. We've also now begun a production arm. So we're making podcasts for other people as well.
Cool.
And, the traction was really, as I've been bootstrapping, we only advertised for a certain amount of time, just really to get the proof of concept and to really kind of measure what sort of quick click-through rate we can get. And then we sort of stopped because I had to use my resources elsewhere.
Right.
But the traction was great, amazing feedback. And we have this beautiful community that we continue to engage with on our socials and through podcasts. And we had commercial partners along that way, which was really amazing because effectively we were pre-product, really. So worked with some fantastic commercial partners and audience partners as well. So along the way, I've sort of ticked boxes as far as really the strategy is concerned.
Yep.
And gone, okay, we've got that. All those pieces of the puzzle have been validated. Let's make the app. We did an Indiegogo crowdsource raise for the app. And now we're ready to go.
So can I just ask, what are your biggest learnings in building this network for a female audience? What were some of it's going to have to be this, and then you started down that road and actually it wasn't that. It wasn't, when you bring in that female lens, what were some of your biggest takeaways or biggest kind of things you've had to change your mind on?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily related to a female audience. One of the biggest learnings I've had, I think, because I wanted to build an app right at the beginning.
Right.
And I had a lot of advice around, don't invest in an app too soon. You can do versions of the product. Your MVP can be online. It can be a URL. It can, use the streaming that's available that's free, all of that sort of stuff. And that was really valuable. As I said, it validated lots of the pieces of the strategy. But I think the old adage, start where you're going to finish, I think is really true. Okay. And at times, no, I don't regret. I think the 3 years have been absolutely valuable. And I do think that I have learned things, probably intangible things around even, how to have a conversation with a staff member, like that kind of stuff that I've learned over the last 3 years. That puts me in better position to release the app now and really start implementing the business plan. But I think if we built the app 3 years ago, I wonder what that roadmap would have been, what that pathway would have been.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I really think about now moving forward. I'm like, let's just go for where you want it to be. Like if you've already got something in your mind, why you don't waste your time playing in a slightly related but different pond.
And the app opens up, like it really becomes a place for women. Is that the place?
Yeah, it's a community. We are a freemium. So, it's a multi level, like it's a double pronged kind of platform. So we have two very distinct customer segments, one being the audience and one being our commercial partners. Okay. So as far as the audience is concerned, that's free. It's a freemium model. So it's always going to be free to listen and free to download. But there's a membership as well, which is, for a fee, you get additional benefits and that community. But even aside from that, for us, it's about always finding ways to elevate women's voices and to give women a sense that they're heard and understood.
And from a commercial partner perspective, like, have they found it difficult to find these audiences? Like, where would they normally go to find these kind of female-only audiences? Is it like Instagram?
I don't think it's about the fact that there aren't other places for those partners to be, but it's diluted audience. Right. Whereas we are 95% women aged 40 to 55.
Right.
Like I can guarantee that.
Okay.
So if that's your market, you're not wasting any money on 30% of your audience might be men. 28% of that audience might be women under 20, like whatever. And particularly with radio, traditional radio, it's very difficult to measure your audience and to know really who you're speaking to.
Sure.
Podcasts and digital audio is a bit more accurate. You can get your data, much more niche.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, we're delivering exactly who you want to talk to every time.
Very cool. And how have commercial partners responded to that, given that?
Well, like I say, they've come to us. And half the time I'm like, we haven't got much of a product, but sure, let's go.
Wow.
Let's do it. Let's work together. And that's been a huge learning. I've really enjoyed understanding their needs. And yeah, it's amazing. We've just recently been working with New Life IVF, which are, they're kind of they're a new, more, they're a doctor-led fertility treatment centre who are, I suppose, alternative to the big guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at times that maybe where our commercial partners come from, some of the people who are a little left of centre of the big guys. But we've partnered with Chemist Warehouse, and I've got some big targets as far as the commercial partners that we'll be targeting when we're heading out to market for that.
Well, extraordinary. That sounds like you're very well progressed. And the commercial model piece, is it? So it's a freemium model. Is there
freemium on the customer side and ad based on the the commercial partner side.
And the membership fees get you around the ads? Is that where you're kind of a bit like Spotify or a bit like?
Yeah, it's more about community. It's about engaging with each other and engaging. So there'd be webinars, there'd be an opportunity to actually share your own content,
Cool.
Sort of building voices in and amongst that community. Yeah.
Okay. And for you, is this your first foray into all things entrepreneurial land, or is this one of many?
Oh, no, this is the only and only. I cannot get my head around people who are serial startup founders. I am in awe, and God bless them, because obviously small business, backbone of our country. And I love seeing how courageous people are and creative and stoic and resilient, but that is not for me. This is my life's purpose, and then I'm done. I plan to exit in 10 years. I'm 51, right?
Wow.
So
hang on, I'm just going to jump in here because I had an overwhelming, this is the second time I've heard this in about 20 minutes. And you do not look 51 at all, Joe.
Very kind. That's why I said it again.
This time it's being recorded.
Yeah. So, but I plan to exit in 10 years, maybe 15. I'll see how I go, because I love it so much. So I expect I'll get to 61 and go, no, I'm not ready. But, I plan to exit in 10, 15 years and then, I don't know, write books, sit in a cottage by the sea.
Got you.
But I've always been quite entrepreneurial before this, in as much as a performer, I always created my work, produced my own work, funded my own work. It was always that was part of the joy for me. So,
but you've got the thinking, right? So we've seen the likes of Mr. Beast. That's a good example, right? Everyone knows him. And it's becoming increasingly obvious how influential, and that people who build audiences, you can launch whatever. Thereafter, KSI and the Prime. It's just mind dropping to a lot of people that they're using their platforms to then launch businesses. And I think Mr. Beast has just moved into software.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God. And then you're just like, wow, the distribution he can get from that, literally instantaneous.
Yep.
And I feel like that's very much kind of, you're working for the similar model. You're building an audience which serves as a legacy project for yourself, gives a platform to other women to step it up if they choose. And then you can commercialize in different avenues which make commercial sense. And so that exit piece, what do you see? Like, who would be an exit partner for this?
Well, the interesting thing is, sure, Amazon, Google, be my guest.
Come on.
But
Jeff, if you're listening.
Yeah. The interesting piece is retail media and the growth of that, right?
And just who do you mean by that? Just so.
Well, Chemist Warehouse is a perfect example of that. Right. I work for Chemist Warehouse. I do a TV show that is produced by Chemist Warehouse on Channel 7 called The House of Wellness.
Right.
I love it.
Got you.
There is also a House of Wellness radio, which I was hosting up until last year. So they are a very good example, but there are like so many of the big brands are looking at that now.
Wow.
You know, Adore Beauty has their own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so retail media is growing very fast. So you never know, 10, 12 years, 15 years from now, maybe it'll be that kind of model.
Got you. Okay. So
because a brand that wants to speak directly to women with a fully formed radio network, podcast network, with that audience there, feels very attractive to them.
How do you build trust with an audience that you're not just going to flog it like that?
Well, that's a good question. I think right from the very beginning, I've made it very clear that there will be advertising because I have to pay for it somehow. I mean, it's not community radio.
Yeah.
And I've never claimed that it will be. However, I believe by that stage, we will have grown out. It's all about your content and it's all about your relationship with your audience. So it's all about every single time making sure when the mics are on, what you're talking about is what people want to listen to.
Yeah.
And that we're doing it in a way that is really respectful of them as people who have spent time with us. I mean, you never lose sight of gratitude for that. It's you know, and then you just build a relationship with that audience because they are you and you are they. Yeah. It's such a beautiful exchange.
And when you said, just to go back to the piece around, you have people still coming up to you about how you changed their life. Funny for a morning radio show where you're largely talking about silly things, I'll imagine. Is that not the case? Or what were they finding particularly impactful such that they can come up to the street and tap you on the shoulder?
Well, firstly, don't discount the silly and how important that is in life. Like creativity and play. Amen. Where would we be without it, right? Yeah. So the silly can lead to some of the best ideas in the world. Secondly, if you're having a really hard day or if you're really tired, and at that time, that audience that I was speaking to on Fox FM, 18 to 35-year-old people, probably majority, or maybe 60, 70% women, you know, they have kids that haven't slept that night. They've got a job that they hate and their husband's working shift, or maybe they're single mums. Oh my gosh, if I've made them laugh that morning, like sometimes that's all they had. Yeah. And they would tell me that. Wow. And I'm like, you know, sometimes that's all I've got too, right? Like I was in the same trenches and I would go to work and you would feel completely depleted, but we made a commitment that we would laugh within 60 seconds of the mics going on every day because laughs beget laugh, right? And it was the greatest job in the world because I always felt amazing at the end of it.
Got it.
But aside from the silly, there were other things like we did speak about really meaningful things. We did speak about things that, like it was for me, it was really important that I was a voice for women and I had this extraordinary privilege and of a voice of the microphone, right? And so I had great responsibility and to use that in a way that was of service of others. So, yeah, I guess I feel like I'm really tooting my own horn here, but why not?
Well, that's the point of you being here. So.
It's true. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of an intangible thing sometimes how you impact on people's lives. You would do it every day yourself, Michael, and you wouldn't know it.
In part, yeah. I guess it's always, I don't know how you've managed that in your career. Like it kind of feels a little bit, you have no idea where these stories are going, or what they're doing, and who's listening, and how this small conversation right here has an impact on someone else down the road. So I feel that's an interesting thing to juggle, isn't it?
Yeah. But that's why, I mean, I guess that's why for me, I'm not ever going to be a serial startup founder because for me, it's entirely purpose-led. And I love the fact that people might have other reasons to do something that is the most grueling thing you could possibly do in the world. Good on them. But I just want it to, I mean, it's just a small goal. I just want to change the world, Michael.
Yeah, I'm with you. No worries. And I think, well, you're a good company because I think that's what Virtual's all about. Yes,
they're amazing. They are amazing.
So tell me about your capital raising experience or kind of process so far. How's it? Have you tried it elsewhere? Have you been speaking to investors left, right, and centre? What's been your journey to date around this piece?
I did spend a year having, let's say, surface level meetings with the VC world.
Right.
Made some great contacts, had great conversations, really encouraging. But we're a very early stage. And I don't know if you noticed, Michael, but the world kind of fell apart last year financially as far as,
I think it's still happening.
It's still happening, but, it really, I think there was panic. And so it felt like there was a lot of de-risking where maybe a year or two when, the year before when I was getting ready for those meetings and doing all that sort of behind the scenes work, strategy work, projections, all that stuff. It felt more optimistic, I guess. And then I started having those meetings and realized how early stage we were in their eyes. Mm-hmm. And I felt, okay, well, let's raise, because Broad Radio is all about the community, always has been. In my mind, I don't own Broad Radio. It is owned by every woman out there. It belongs to every woman who wants to feel like they're less alone, effectively. So I thought, this is a really nice model. This allows everybody to have a share in the business. How wonderful. It really speaks to our values and it allows us to get further along our roadmap so that then we can increase value and then go back to the VCs.
Well, I think it definitely serves a purpose. And I think we're seeing more and more, I speak to founders and they say it's not easy raising capital and not ever is it easy. But I think in a market where, inflation's taken out hammering people, I think you can't discount, passion's not impacted by interest rates like your bank account is. You know what I mean? And I think that's really an exciting thing for people who are looking at crowdsourcing is that, they may be paying more on their mortgage, but they still might have $500 they could throw behind this campaign or $500,000 in some cases. So it's, I think that's really, really cool in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think, again, it's about decentralization. Isn't that the future, right? That's just about community and just going, okay, once again, let's put some power back into all of the hands of the people who for a long time haven't had a voice, haven't had the ability to invest, haven't had the ability to really have a share in a company. Mm-hmm. It's, to me, it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, awesome. Well, Jo, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. We wish you all the best with your raise.
Thank you. Yes. Do please check us out on the virtual platform. Look at our offer doc and look at all of our profile and all of our information there, our beautiful video that we loved shooting. It was a great day, which my husband did produce, and there were no arguments. Okay. He and I working together on that day. I know, it was a miracle.
The brief must have been clear. And I'm going to go home from this and tell my wife we need separate rooms.
Thank you so much.
So joking on you.